the older people going into the dating world, it doesn't seem to get any easier between the ages of 20 to in the 60s. It seems people have the same stories, yet everybody is looking for that amazing relationship, but it seems both men and women can't find that relationship.
Hilda Lunderstedt founded and grew one of South Africa's most successful nutraceutical companies. She has won multiple awards for her dedication to entrepreneurship and empowerment. She founded and leads her Second Stage, a global movement helping accomplished women find belonging and deeper meaning in midlife. Joanna Shakti founded Ecstatic Intimacy, where she offers programs, events, and mentoring to men and women that empower them to put the hot and happy back into love. As the soul love mentor, Joanna inspires anyone who hungers for deeper love and intimate pleasure to find and create a relationship that is an expression of ecstatic authenticity, intimacy, and ecstasy.
Joanna, good morning.
Good morning.
The state of dating in 2025 seemed to be dismal. I'm on a Facebook group here in Austin where women talk about their dating experiences and warn other women about the men that they've been dating. And, you know, as you see the rise with the great divorce, I have so many questions for you. What is going on?
Oh, there's several things going on, but I want to start with the thing that you said where my heart started to break. And the group of women in Austin, but I know this happens in all kinds of places.
Sure, every city has.
Every city across the internet where women are talking about the problems with men and naming men. It is, in my opinion, incredibly disrespectful and incredibly dishonoring of the very thing that they're wanting to create. So they want to attract the masculine. Many cases. We'll get into conversation about masculine and feminine, but for now, I'm going to make an assumption of women and femininity. This is not absolutely true for any listeners, but for this moment, to make this point, I'm going to make that association, and men and masculinity. And that when that collective judgment of the masculine happens, they are judging, including the very man that they want to attract. And to think that this is all a them problem, whether it's the men blaming the women or the women blaming the men, it is not a them problem. And while there are certainly men in our world who are dishonoring and disrespectful, absolutely, there are way more who are not, who are doing everything in their power to be a good man. And yet we misunderstand each other. The feminine does not understand the masculine, and the masculine does not understand the feminine, and they shame and judge each other rather than uplifting these two very complementary, different human expressions. And so the first thing we have to do to shift this current state of dating is to begin to look at our part. We point out there where the old adage is there's three fingers pointing back here. So what's my part? How am I not available for the kind of love that I most am seeking, whoever that seeker is?
You are right. And we're really into exploring the masculine, feminine, and it is just so easy to see the flaws in other people or them, as you were talking about. And I'm so happy that you said like men to women as well, because I don't think it's just women to men. I hear that there's also Facebook groups that men has talking about their experiences with women. So it's just going to and fro, and we're not getting anywhere. And it seems like everybody wants the same thing. Yes, we're pushing that very same thing that we want away through our attitude to possibly the wrong people.
Possibly the wrong people. And also, and I'm going to say this phrase, but then I want to clarify. It's being the wrong person. And when I say being the wrong person, it's because we have been conditioned to be performative. We have been conditioned to try to put on, as women, the pretty face, but also the powerful face. And when I say powerful, what so often happens is that we perceive power as a masculine quality. And yet power is simply our ability to influence. And what many people do is idolize masculine power, the assertive, directive, take charge power, instead of the creative, collaborative, communing power of the feminine, the power of her light and her brilliance, because she is so connected to, I'm going to call it, all of the realms. The feminine knows so much and her power is very unique. But when she thinks she has to be masculine to be respected, she's not being herself. And that is being, quote, the wrong person. If anyone is being anything but their true self, regardless of the reasons, we are not being the one that can be fully loved. It is our human, imperfect, messy, brilliant, powerful, vulnerable wholeness that is our greatest power and our greatest attractiveness.
Like that's so easy. Like the layers and layers and layers of decades of telling us how we supposed to be, how we supposed to show up, good girls behave, and how we need to be. And I'm not talking like for our age group, what my age group, women getting into 50s and 60s, is to uncover who you are under all of those layers.
Absolutely.
A journey. I've started my journey on uncovering all of those and into my femininity. And it's beautiful. Now I'm so happy I did it, but it's not an easy journey. There's a lot of things that I had to face and that I had to let go of and shed. How is that the path of every woman basically need to do, is just learn what to shed?
It's the path of every human, but it doesn't have It is the path of every human. It doesn't have to be as hard or as arduous. And I'm not going to say it doesn't take some effort and it doesn't take some courage, because it does. And it takes some time. But it also doesn't have to take as long as we think it's going to. I want to add one other thing in, and then I'll continue with that thought. And that is that with this conditioning of the feminine, there is also the conditioning of what is the modern woman? What is the powerful, strong, independent woman? And that persona moves women towards masculine energy, even when that's likely not their primary constitution energetically. So I wanted to name that as we start to unravel this. And so when I journey with people, when people move through our programs, we break it down into 3 phases. And I'm going to start with the end in mind. Where people want to get to is the life and the love and the lovemaking that takes their breath away time and time and time again. The deep, devoted union, not just partnership, but deep, devoted union. That should be a thumbs up on Zoom and not a thumbs down. But that capacity to so fully where does one end and the other begin? But we can't have that if we don't have solid partnership. So if we call that third stage the ecstatic ecstasy stage, the stage where life and love and lovemaking take our breath away over and over again, what comes before that is our capacity to be intimate, to be in partnership, to meet each other soul to soul, body to body, heart to heart. And what that means is that we have to discover and bring our individuality, because what happens in so many relationships, because people are trying to keep that relationship, they actually end up in dynamics where they lose themselves, where they sell out, and it becomes what we would call enmeshment or codependence, rather than 2 individual whole beings, imperfect, 10,000% imperfect, being in true partnership. Because we can't have unity, the third stage, without sovereignty, partnership of 2 sovereign beings in the second stage. So that's the ecstatic intimacy. But before we can have that sovereign partnership, we have to have the ecstatic authenticity. We have to know who we are. We have to know our masculine and feminine expressions in their wholeness, in their safety. We have to know that we are innately imperfect, and yet we are still worthy of love, that we are loved for our humanness. People fall in love with us for our imperfection, not all of our accomplishments and perfections, but so often we're afraid to let the whole being be seen. But the moment that we can finally let down the guard we have the chance to be loved for who we are. And that's actually when we are willing, the definition of ecstatic authenticity is the place where we are willing to be all of who we are in our beauty and our mess, to let ourselves be seen for the brilliance and the imperfection, and no longer willing to sell ourselves out, settle, or twist ourselves into a pretzel for anybody or anything. And that's the first place that we can actually trust love. So it starts with ourselves. And that, the strength of the relationship with ourselves, determines the strength of the relationship that we can have with anyone else.
So true. Because I think a lot of people have their guards up and they think once I get to know you, I'm going to drop and I'm going to show up authentically. But by then I already got to know the person of you that's not you.
Right.
So what you are saying is you're showing up authentically, no matter who it is or at what point of our friendship, our relationship, our dating that is, because this is me. And if you don't like it, it's also going to be okay. I don't have to mold myself to be the person you need to like so that I can feel good about me or us and the enmeshment of whatever my fantasy is this is going to become.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you make a really important point, Hilda, is that me knowing, you knowing, each person knowing that if a relational dating dynamic doesn't work out, we'll be okay. If our okayness is dependent on what happens in that relationship, we must, or that dating situation, we must self-abandon because everything depends on what happens here. So we've got to do that pretzel twisting. If we are so attached to that outcome, we then are required effectively to sell ourselves out. So I have to know, each person has to know, I'll be okay if this doesn't work out. And that okayness gives us the capacity to be authentic.
Really resonates because we are so scared to love fully. Because how can you, the dichotomy of loving fully and still be okay when this doesn't, it's like maybe it sounds to me holding something back with your love, because how can I be okay if I love fully, if this doesn't work out?
Right.
It's almost like my body is saying you can't have it all. You can't be okay and love fully.
Yes. And this is the fight, this internal push-pull. And I can't tell you the number of people that I work with that are doing all the things to date and create relationships. And I remember when I woke up to this in myself, is that they're doing all the things. It looks like they're on the path, but internally there is a resistance. There's a fear. There's a pushing against. Unconsciously, all the circumstances look right, but why am I not finding my man? Because we're not actually available for it.
So how does that become conscious? Like, is it just through doing the work, the shadow work, explore that question, why am I not finding my man? And then you start from there and then figure out, oh, there's a resistance I don't really want to find.
Yeah. So in that first phase of the work, the ecstatic authenticity journey, we're exploring different aspects of self-expression. And I love, might sound crazy, but recently I've been watching some of the WNBA games, and there was a commercial that came on that was about clothing. But the end of the commercial was self-expression is the greatest expression of self-love. And so this ability to express ourselves authentically. And so in that, each of the experiences that we'll go through are to actually take us on the journey of revealing what has been put in the way. There's a quote that is sometimes attributed to Rumi and sometimes attributed to A Course in Miracles, but it says it's not for us to seek for love, but to seek and find all the barriers we've built against it.
Yeah.
And so whether it's
About that post, it's beautiful. It really touched my heart.
Yeah, it's so meaningful because we can go and charge and do, and that's what our masculine energy conditions us to do. Let me work harder and try harder, and I'll try this and I'll do that. But it's not a journey of addition. It's a journey of subtraction of everything that we are not. to peel back those layers. So again, whether it's the masculine and feminine, whether it's our self-view of our worthiness, our deservedness, our lovability, whether it is, we also start to look at what are the frameworks that we hold of the masculine or the feminine, whoever we're attracted to, men or women, to begin to see the storylines. Because as we believe, so we experience. And so each of those journeys, what's our relationship to passion? What's our relationship to relationships, to love, to intimacy? And every one of those things is either an accelerator or a saboteur. And so we'll move through that framework so that we can reveal true self as we drop what was never true self.
You know, what came to mind as you were talking about all this work, we go to school, we go to college, we spend 4 years learning all these other things. And then we think 4 years is too much to spend time uncovering or getting our degree in me, of the whoever the me is.
Yes. It is one of my greatest prayers to be able to begin doing this with the teens, that we could discover this kind of relationship with ourselves early on. The way it would change life trajectories is just astonishing. And we're not doing that, to your point.
And in that group in particular are so struggling with connection and rejection. In itself, my son just had his recent first heartbreak. It was really for me to teach him that the feelings was within him. He owns those feelings he had for her, and he's going to be okay. And all he needs to do is replicate those feelings for himself and not for another person. And then I realized, and he really struggled with as the masculine, because, you know, he's got to be tough guy and not have feelings and show up as okay. And for me, and to try and get him to connect with his feelings. And someone needs to do it with the younger groups.
Yes.
When they grow up, they can show up exactly how you just explained. And we don't have to 40 years later.
Yes. 40 years later, 80, I've witnessed a woman in her 90s open her eyes after a clearing process and say, now I can start living my life. Let's hope that we don't have to wait till our 90s. But what I know is it doesn't matter how old you are. You can have this. I have witnessed a man in his 80s and a woman in her late 60s, early 70s. She was in terminal cancer. They had the best love and lovemaking of their lives in that year.
Really?
Absolutely. I mean, the tears come. Like, it's never, ever, ever too late to have this.
Many women is giving up on finding, but they think hope. I want to hear your story. How did you get, I know you were electrical engineer, MBA, pretty masculine industry. What was your journey in getting to where you can really feel your body and speak from the feminine and got to what the work that you're doing now? How did that all happen?
Absolutely. And I'm just going to, if we have time, I'm going to share that story, but I'd love to come back and say something about your son and his feelings, because I think it's really important. But I think if I tell my story, it'll actually set the stage for that really well. But I wanted to bookmark it. So I grew up in the heart of the 70s, I was born in the late 60s, grew up in the heart of the 70s, and the women's movement was front and center. My family was one of the first divorced families on the block. And all of that conditioning taught me so much. However, they weren't great lessons. And certainly there was the journey of I was the cause of all the problems. And so my journey with self-love, self-worth, deserving, worthiness, all of those, I struggled. There was deep self-hatred in this body. So that was one side of the journey that I eventually had to overcome. And then there was watching the dynamics between my parents when they split, and then the subsequent relationships that they had. And I made a vow, I will never depend on a man. And yet I wanted relationship. I loved men. I thought they were fascinating. So as I came into my teens and I was in a very conservative family and trying to embrace my sexuality, but that was like, oh, let it out. No, push it down. Let it out. No, push it down. And that dynamic and the guilt and the shame for all of that. But I decided that through one of my high school chemistry teachers, that I would step into engineering. She really guided. And so I ended up getting an electrical engineering degree. And then that last semester, I met 6'3", blonde-haired, blue-eyed, concert pianist, par golfer, valedictorian, Prince Charming, or so I thought. And he was an amazing man. But if somebody like that with all of those qualities loved me, I was going to follow it regardless of what my body told me. And again, he's a brilliant man, but there were things that I saw as yellow and red flags that I ignored because I wanted that love so badly, and especially with that kind of man. And so we got married and divorced 4 years later. And then I wondered what was wrong with all the men, and why then, as I started dating, did I meet the sexually repressed men, and why couldn't they maintain a relationship? Well, yes, all that looking out there was their problem. Fast forward, I got into one workshop that said heal heart hurts that run your life. That was the self-work. That was the self-love work, to be specific, to overcome the self-abandonment that I had done trying to get love. And then I found myself at an event that described the masculine and the feminine. And it was as if for that day where that was being shared and facilitated, I felt like I sat with my jaw on the floor for 8 hours going, this describes my life, why I'm successful, why I get promoted, why I'm exhausted and burnt out, why I can't orgasm, why I'm divorced, why I judge men. Everything in that 8 hours clicked into place. And I walked out of that event in 2001 and I knew that I would leave corporate. I knew that my soul's work was to first do my own work on this path, but then to serve women so they didn't have to go through the pain that I went through myself, and to serve men so they didn't have to go through the pain that I put men through. And it was that catapulted me on a journey of masculine and feminine dynamics, of self-love, of male-female dynamics, of communication, of sacred sexuality and tantra, of leadership. Because really our perspectives on leadership are incredibly influenced by our masculine and feminine perspectives and embodiments. And so for 23 years now, 24 years has been my journey to serve everyone on the entire gender spectrum, the entire energetic spectrum of masculine and feminine, because it's not always feminine energy with female body or masculine energy with male body. Sometimes it's reversed. Sometimes it's neutral. Those are not the majority, but they absolutely exist. And what matters is that we have permission to discover and be who we are in our wholeness. So that's how I got here and why I am so passionate
So you
about this
must have
journey.
seen everything over the last 23 years, from where the world, 2000, all the changes. Tell me, what was your most prominent change that you've seen, how relationship, men and women, have evolved over the 23 years?
Yeah. And foremost, we started having the conversation. 23 years ago, there were a couple of people in the world having this conversation. And there were no coaches. There was a beautiful woman from Ireland who was a public speaker who kind of took me under her wing and started helping me with my feminine embodiment. So with that, just finding my way, whatever I could pick up in books, in conversations, and my own exploration. So all of that to say, there's so much that exists today. One of the problems that I see with so much that exists, if people don't go to the root and the essence of this conversation, what happened to me, I see happening a lot. And that is, I was very masculine. That's the doing, make things happen energy. It's very result oriented. So it has a performative aspect to it. And so I was like, oh, wait. I'm feminine. I realized I'm feminine. I'm showing up in the world masculine. So how do I do feminine energy? So what I ended up doing was taking and putting a feminine mask over top of the masculine mask that already existed, because this is not a behavioral thing. It's not how we dress for how we dress. It's not how we speak or how we move or how we try to attract men. It's that game, that journey of subtraction. So I see a lot of the teachings out there trying to teach women and also men or masculine beings how to do masculinity,
Do the feminine.
how to do the feminine, and it never, ever, ever works. That requires willpower. That requires effort. When we are ourselves, no effort, nothing. It just comes easily. So while there's tons more conversation about this, where there has been healing, we have a lot more healing to do, but there have been a healing that has begun to happen between the masculine and the feminine. The spaces where we can bring men and women together, masculine and feminine beings together to witness, to see, and understand each other is so incredibly potent and powerful. We can have the conversation like we started out here today that says we think, oh, they're the problem. But we also have a capacity to speak about love and relationships from the viewpoint of how are we contributing. So our conversations and therefore our possibilities and our awarenesses and therefore the depth of what we can actually share with one another has expanded so much. It is not a requirement to be something.
That's amazing, because you don't link what couples or people did 20 years ago where there were no conversations.
And yes.
And people were just blaming probably and thinking just my husband was my wife or whatever, and not having the verbiage to have the conversation with each other. So you don't think about a life where these conversations are not happening. We have some way to go, but at least we're having the conversations. And there's coaches and there's support. We'll be trying to help with whatever we're struggling with.
10,000%.
Do you want to, at any point, do you want to pivot back to my son, or do you want to?
No, let's bring the divine masculine and feminine in, and that's a perfect place to do it.
Yes.
Yeah. So divine masculine and feminine are simply energies. Let's do it. I'm like, how do I want to take this reasonably complex thing and make it simple? Masculine and feminine are energies, and they express within all of us. Everyone has masculine, everyone has feminine. When we say the divine, or I could say the conscious, the awakened, the mature, the sacred, all of those energies, they are the masculine or feminine expressed at their highest levels of consciousness. There are also the unconscious, immature aspects of masculine and feminine energy. So the divine comes in through our conscious embodiment, understanding, and loving work with the unconscious sides of it. So there is no divine masculine being, divine feminine being. There is the human and the divine. There is the conscious and the unconscious. And yet, as we evolve, as we express, as we come home to the fullest expressions of ourselves and the willingness, because we will all, as long as we're in form, we're going to have some level of unconsciousness. We're going to have some level of shadow. The divine is also an expression of our embracing, not our indulgence of, but our recognition of, oh, that's one of the places that I go unconscious. That's one of the places that I push away. That's one of the places that the feminine can armor up and take control and charge, when what she really wants to do is be held and supported, to let that down sometimes. But the unconscious aspects are going to have us repress the divine aspects, the brilliant aspects. So to dance with, to cultivate, to create spaces for the divine masculine and feminine expressions within ourselves and between us. I actually like to say within, between, and beyond in this dance of the divine masculine and feminine. We get to have the extraordinary blessings that come because they are complements. And so this is where now let's talk about setting the stage to speak about your son. Masculine and feminine have its origins in many early traditions, but the yin and the yang symbol is one of those critical teachers for us. And the yin is the black side traditionally, the yang is the white side traditionally. They blend into each other. But what I didn't see for years while I was doing this work, and what many people miss, is that there is a fully enclosed circle of the other. And so in the yin side, it can only be its strongest if that yang, the masculine, is also within at the center. The masculine, the yang, can only be its fullest expression if there is the yin at the center. So this is also part of the divine masculine and feminine. The divine masculine has integrated its divine feminine. The divine feminine has integrated its divine masculine. And what happens in our unconscious is that those center circles become like regulator valves. And sometimes they're too wide open in a feminine being and we get strong, independent woman. And sometimes they're too closed and we get doormat. And sometimes, many times actually, in the women that I work with, both of those are going on simultaneously. And in the masculine, it can look like too wide open, the nice guy, too closed off, excuse my language, the asshole. So we're coming into, back to ecstatic authenticity, we're coming into right relationship with our inner integration, our inner embodiment of both of those energies. So now your son, when you are working with him with his emotions, you are actually cultivating, helping him touch into the yin energy. Our emotionality, the flow of emotions, is feminine. It is a yin energy, but there's been so much conditioning for men and masculine beings. Don't feel, don't show your soft side, don't get vulnerable, don't be tender. And there is where that's gone overboard. We get the new age sensitive guy and the nice guy, which is beautiful, but typically not authentic. It's strategic. But giving him the space to realize he can feel without losing his masculine presence. So now he can grow up to be this presence, assuming that he is predominantly masculine, to be this presence of masculine energy who can open his heart. And that is the most powerful, compelling, safe. And you can see like this, when we come home to that, this is what the feminine needs in the world right now. That wholeness of the divine masculine.
Thank you for that reflection. How do we recognize the essence of divinity in each other and the divine masculine and feminine? How does it show up and how does the shadow show up? Because I think we often focus so much on avoiding the shadow masculine or feminine that we miss the divine aspects completely.
Yeah. Well, first thing I'll say is that it's really hard to see the divine aspects in another if we don't see them in ourselves.
I should have known the answer to that by now.
But this is the question, and it happens. And even I have so many that I work with, so I have so much love to give. But those same people that say, I have so much love to give, deny themselves that love.
Yeah. You never had the love for yourself.
Right. And they can see, I want to give, but it's this, they've developed this huge capacity to give because they're so longing to be loved. But when somebody offers that love, if they don't believe they're lovable, it will never land. They'll never have the experience of being loved. And so again, we've got to come back and see ourselves in this beautiful capacity. And our capacity to love and connect is the divine feminine. The feminine stands for our connection, our unity. The masculine stands for the independent, the sovereign. And so then we need both of those. We can't have unity without sovereignty. And so it is the two working together within us, between us, beyond us. And seeing that the shadow side of the feminine, for example, is the place where, and I'm going to give this in a simplified version. This is actually, we do this in our phase 3 work where we've had a chance to work with this.
Right? These are such big questions.
These are such big questions and not simple answers. However, on the shadow side of the feminine, she'll go so far into the feminine that she abandons her ability to say no, to set boundaries, to hold her own self. It's an abandonment of the masculine. It's closing off that inner circle. So she does become the one that's taken advantage of. That's the shadow of the feminine that shows up because she doesn't have the integrated masculine. And when I'm saying integrated, many people imagine it's 50-50. For most of us, it's not. We're finding the harmony, not the balanced energy. And so, because often balancing those energies becomes a neutering or neutralizing effect that puts us into the friend and roommate zone. So I just want to name that. We're not going for 50 for most people. It's what is that authentic, harmonious expression of the two. And so that recognizing the shadow is really where we strategically are using or not using aspects of our masculine or feminine energy. So if we're in strategy, if we're trying to manage the outcome, we're in our shadow. If we are present and allowing what is and what wants to happen to move through us, we are in that divine, authentic expression. We don't have to manage divinity. It just is.
Wow. Life could just be so much simpler than trying to
Yes.
manage all of these aspects.
Yes. Yes. But this is where we have to build trust of self, trust of life. Many people think it's about learning to trust others. That's so far down the line. It's like we can't trust another until we trust ourselves. We can't love another until we love ourselves. So yeah, I'll stop there. Go ahead.
Leads me just to a thought that came in is a lot of women struggles with safety.
Yes.
And I know it's going to be safety. And I realized I always wanted to be feeling safe with other people until a couple of weeks ago, I realized I need to find the safety within me in that journey. I know it starts with me and then I'll be safe everywhere else. What do women do that's really, maybe it's a story we tell ourselves, are just not safe for the feminine or the female that is weaker than the men? There's so many dangerous stories or things happening. So how is it really only just safety within myself, or are there other factors playing in?
Yeah, it's a beautiful question. And it's also another enormous question. And trust is multidimensional, and safety. Like, let's be honest. Are there transgressions against women in the world? Absolutely. 10,000%. Have most women experienced some kind of violation or transgression? In some form or another, most have. That women relate to their safety very different than men relate to their safety. So first we have to honor, and one of the things that I have to teach men is that they can't look at a woman's relationship to safety through their own lens, their own viewpoint, because it's so different. And so first, we all have to own that there is an aspect of that safety that plays out in how we are able to relate and express and let go and surrender, because it is in surrender that we can have the greatest of experiences, the life, the love, and the lovemaking that take our breath away. We can't do that when we're in control. It comes from somewhere beyond us. But how do we do that? So first and foremost, again, it's coming back to knowing self. But it's not just, I'm going to armor up and make sure I'm safe. That puts us back into strategy. But there also is a presence of, where am I? What's happening? What's my environment right now? And how open am I? One of the things that I heard from Alison Armstrong many years ago was that her experience was that the feminine, when she comes into her feminine, instead of trying to be that armored up, strong, independent woman, that she is the safest. Because the masculine, when she is in her feminine, the masculine will rush in to support her. They will rush in to protect her. But if she says, I got it, the masculine says, okay. And that's not verbally, but energetically. We are interdependent beings. So we are ultimately responsible for our safety, but our relationship to, you don't have to believe in any religious tradition or spiritual tradition. It is my experience that there is something beyond us. There is at least life, or the universe, as we might call it. And we have to develop a trusting relationship with life, which then allows us to develop an intuition that guides us, that we can respond to. So now we're beginning to trust life. We're beginning to trust ourselves. Then we can get out there and feel into what is safe. Where do I open up? Who do I say yes to a date with? What do I do? How do I move through the world? But it's a multidimensional integration of ultimately coming to know the world as a loving space, even when painful, traumatic, sometimes disgusting things happen, that ultimately it's a loving place.
I wish everyone can experience it. Can you imagine what this world would be like even if just half the fraction
Yes.
experience what that trust and safety, and we can show up in our full humanness. And that's the world I pray for and hope through these conversations to showcase people like you and the work that you've done, that we can expand the conversation and expand the awareness that it is possible. If you can think about it and dream it, that world is possible. It might take time and it might take a lot of work, but it is possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah. On this one, I know we talking a lot. What sexually suppressed woman, and the fear, again, it goes with safety of showing up in your full sensuality and in your full embodied feminine. What's the safe way of showing up in your, and I'm not going to just say feminine, but sexuality, in your sexual
Yeah.
being,
Yeah.
where there's so much trauma around that.
Yeah. And so it really leans back into the conversation that we were just having, is being in tune with ourselves and in tune with life. I wouldn't encourage a woman in general to turn on her fullest sensual light and walk down the streets of New York at midnight. Like, that probably doesn't make sense.
Sadly.
But if we're in our living room with our beloved, and I know I'm going to extremes, but we can talk about the middle when we see the extremes, and I'm in the living room or in the bedroom with my beloved, and can I feel the presence and the safety to let that shine, to set it free? And many women, sadly, can't. Most of us are on a journey to more and more liberation of our energetic, sensual, sexual self. And so again, it's coming home here, trusting ourselves, letting go of the judgments that have existed of what it means if we're to this or to that. So self-relationship and really removing the conditioning that says it's not okay. But then going back to the safety, consciousness. Is this a place that my being says, yes, like I'm on a dance floor in a nightclub, maybe that's not where I go now, or it's an ecstatic dance if it's from a spiritual perspective, but it's like, yes, everything I check in, I'm aware, everything says, express, dance, move, let go. Certain dance partners, I'm a dancer of swing dance and blues dance, and there are certain partners that I will connect with, and the energy that they hold, oh, I can let go in this dance. There's more sensuality that comes out. There's others where the body stays more contained. The energy stays more contained. I was like rigid sometimes, but it's contained. It's really contained. And that's developed over with my capacity to trust myself to feel the energy.
So again, your body will tell you.
Your body is so wise. Our intuition is brilliant.
That makes me so sad how we as women have disconnected years and years and years from our body and the wisdom our body is so desperately trying to share with us. And we just can't hear it.
Yes. So all of our work in our programs, if they were training modules and I wanted you to learn something, they'd be called training modules. But you'll probably learn something, but I really don't care if you do. What I care is that you embody something. So they're called embodiment elements. It's to come back here. Our bodies and our emotions are incredible barometers for our souls.
So just take me through your 3 steps of your program. I know you mentioned it earlier as we closing off with the authenticity. I'm going to give it up to you.
Yep. Starts with the ecstatic authenticity. I like who I am. I know who I am. I like who I am. And eventually I come to love who I am and fully express who I am.
What's that process or that program?
4 to 6 months. 4 to 6 months. And then the second phase, the relating phase. So the first phase is the self phase, but we see ourselves through the lens of relating. So I kind of say it's an 80-20 rule. The first phase is 80% self, 20% relating. Then we have to get over here and practice relating. And it doesn't matter if somebody comes into this work as a single or in partnership. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter if a couple's been married for decades. What's happening in the two individuals is determining what's happening in the relationship. We can't solve the relationship challenges without seeing what's happening in the individuals. So then we come into the ecstatic intimacy, the loving soul to soul aspects, and the relational dynamics. And this is where sometimes people lose themselves, but we can't lose ourselves and have true partnership. So this is the practice and the discovery of how do I love masculine to feminine, heart to heart, body to body, soul to soul. And oh, by the way, if we're soulmates, that means we're going to push each other's buttons. And so therefore we must know how to navigate conflict And when we know how to navigate conflict consciously, our conflicts and our challenges become connection and communion that strengthen and deepen the bond of relationship. And so that ecstatic intimacy married with the ecstatic authenticity, the being married with the relating, then we can step into the ecstatic ecstasy. And so the first two phases for most people are 4 to 6 months. The super fast ones might be 3, but 4 to 6 months. So those first two phases, up to a year for most people.
It's interesting what you say. We all hope and dream about finding our soulmate, only to find when you meet, you true for the whole time of duration of the relationship.
They'll take your breath away and piss you off all through the relationship. And that is the way it's meant to be. That's the gift. If we're willing to surrender and take that journey so that we become more of ourselves, that our soulmates are here to evolve our souls. And that deepens and strengthens the bond.
We had with my friends, and one girl was like, just be careful what you wish for, because she met hers and this is hard work.
Yes.
Your third phase is
Ecstatic ecstasy.
Ecstatic ecstasy. And that's when you take it to the world.
Yes, that's where you take it to the world. That's where your love that you're sharing in partnership. If you're in partnership, I have people that are in the third phase that aren't in partnership because they've realized, wait, no, ecstatic ecstasy is actually the same ultimately as ecstatic authenticity. It is living my full self. And if a partner comes in, I am welcoming that. But I get to have everything.
I was going to ask you, like, do people go and they think they want to meet someone and then realize their internal barriers? Do they, going through the process, actually decide, no, I don't want to date. I'd rather just want to be with
For
me?
a period of time, a good percentage actually do. Like, oh, wait, this relationship with me, I want to spend time here.
Yeah.
And then coming back out, oh, then okay, now it feels right.
Joanna, thank you. I'd love this conversation. I can talk all day long about love and happiness on the planet and how masculine and feminine can support each other. And I am so happy to meet you and the work that you do and your passion that you to inspire. I'm just going to read from what you write. You inspire and celebrate the awakened masculine in his deep presence, his penetrative power, his intense sexuality and deep consciousness, to a messenger for awakened sensuality and sexuality, and also to help the feminine in her sensuality and sexuality power with her grace. You are amazing soul, and the world is better with you on it. And thank you for having this conversation with me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for creating the space for this conversation. It's an immense service to the hearts of the world and to the world itself. We need this right now. Thank you.